It's Debatable with Mark Gray here on MLBBro.com.
We continue with Debatable, trying to figure out how to make baseball cool again for Black folks, along with 1984 world champion outfielder from the Detroit Tigers, Rod Allen, and the voice of MLBBro.com. Say it for me now. Say it, Telly. Baseball.
Baseball.
See, that's what we love about you, dog. Oh, man. Love those pipes. So let's take it to the stands and away from the field right quick, fellas. We're in a microwave society. Things move quick. You get your information in 2.5, 3 minutes. Does baseball's slow, intricate style, the walk in the park type of inherence to the game hurt the connection with this generation, especially when you do, and I'm a big fan of quick pitch. If I can get my favorite team's highlights, in a millisecond, I'm inclined to go that route. But would I spend, money for the experience right now to spend 3.5, 4 hours at the game? So I'm just wondering, can we reconnect without adding a play clock or something like that? Telly, let's talk to you.
Well, I think sometime it's just, baseball has always been a slow game, and it's something that they have tried to appeal, but once again, appeal to the younger, especially African-American community. I think that kind of goes into each organization in each different city. If I don't have someone that I want to go cheer for, then I'm not going to go to the game. And I will get my highlights through Quick Pitch or Sports Center or whatever other outlet you choose to use. But I think that if I have a reason to go see, like, for instance, I'm in Milwaukee, and Jackie Bradley Jr. is now a Milwaukee Brewer. And if he's out in the community and he's trying to encourage other African Americans to come to the games, I think that would give me a reason to go and watch him. But more importantly, I think is just the disconnect, because you can't have it both ways. Baseball is trying to be up with the times with all the analytics, but they want to keep it America's pastime and keep it the slow, methodical way that it's been. So I think you have to find a way to appeal to the next generation. And I think you do that by really ushering out your stars and giving people a reason to come to the ballpark and have it like it used to be, where when I was growing up, that was a thrill of a lifetime to get to go to a major league stadium and get to see Major League Baseball players. Whereas now, there's so many other things that you can do where it's like, I'll just catch the highlights.
Rod, OG, step up here, man. Tell me what you think in terms of being one who's from that previous generation and who looks at the way that, quite frankly, everybody's interpreting everything in society in such a fast-paced, let's get up out of here kind of way.
Well, I grew up in the game and I played the game professionally, and, I love watching baseball. Regardless of how long the game takes, that's just my DNA. Whereas my kids, my boys, they both play professional baseball. They both went to college, but they have a more difficult time of sitting down and watching a baseball game. I don't have that problem, but I think what baseball is trying to do now with all the streaming and Facebook and Instagram and some of these different things, especially what all the young kids are gravitating to now, they're trying to figure out ways to get the game on those devices to those kids. Baseball would love for a lot of the African-American kids to play the game. And as I said to you, they've hired people in the front office. They're trying to bring the game back to the kids, but you can't force them to play. So what they're trying to do is trying to reach the kids in a lot of other different ways. And Telly brought up a huge point there about Joe Morgan, one of my mentors in the broadcast booth. I just absolutely love Joe. Joe, as a matter of fact, when he was doing the Sunday night broadcast and I was broadcasting games, they would take the game, but in Arizona and in Detroit, I'd still go to the ballpark just to see Joe. That's just how special he was to me. But he talked about all the Latin American academies. Telly brings this up. Baseball has some academies now too. Los Angeles, they have them in Houston, they have them in New Orleans. They're behind a little bit, but they're starting to have that same, as far as in those communities where you see minority kids playing the game of baseball. But I just think I grew up in the game. My kids grew up in the game. And I think a lot of it does still fall back on the parents being engaged and loving the game and getting those kids to the certain practices, whatever they could afford. I think that's important too.
And Rod, and I know there's been times where baseball has tried to re-engage the African-American community. In the early 90s, they had the RBI League. I actually played in it, and it stood for Reviving Baseball in the Inner City. And I was, I want to say I was 15, and we had a World Series at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. And you had all these teams from different states, and you actually had a team from the Dominican Republic that played. And you got a chance to play in a major league stadium at 14 years old. I mean, I thought that was the most awesome thing ever. So if you get a chance to make people or make players excited for small things like that, I mean, Rod, you know, when we were coming up, and I mean, you're a little older than me, but I mean, we were just happy to get our uniforms. We were happy to all have matching hats and stuff like that. But I mean, if you get a kid that is in the inner city and you have an opportunity to go and play in that major league stadium, I mean, those are incentives that should make players want to work hard and be a part of this game, because you get that exposure, you get to play in a major league stadium, and then all of a sudden that becomes your goal in life, that I want this to be my job. And I think it's just small things like that that will help insinuate or initiate that type of passion for the game of baseball again, especially in the Black community.
You know, one other thing that I'd like to say here, regarding baseball. I mean, Major League Baseball in 2020 hired a young lady by the name of Michelle Myers-Shipp to come in and just kind of oversee in human resources, their practices, minority hirings, lots of different things like that. She wears a lot of different hats over there. So they are trying to do a lot of that. And I just think that something that we're talking about now, and I know it goes further and kind of off base, but Telly, you were a broadcaster. I was a broadcaster. I don't think kids of minority kids understand the advantages that they can have in the game just being a part of baseball. There's so many other areas that you can strive in right now. And that's where they're trying to push kids. I mean, everybody's not going to be a player, but you can certainly work in the front office. You could be part of an organization, part of a community. And I think that's where baseball is reaching out to some people, not everybody. We're talking about players, but there are lots of opportunities that they're trying to create for minorities in baseball now, because they understand they've been behind the 8 ball.
MLBBro.com, covering Black and brown major leaguers.